Okay. So I'm back. I was getting here. I was getting here. I just needed to sort some things out. I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate this. I'm just unclear of certain little differences. So I've completely had to make like changes to accommodate this new experience. But I did make it and I'm here. And it's good to be uh yeah, I'm definitely. Am I going? Yeah, I'm here. So yeah, so everything is happening. Um, and I don't know what prompted me in my brain. I'm thinking, well, what if it doesn't really matter when I go live? So um, I do know that like a little earlier, well, a lot earlier than 6 p.m. is usually the better time. But I will know in a little bit. So right now I'm trying different angles. Um, I've had more than a handful of successes so far. Things are really going in the direction that, I guess, in the direction that I would like it to go. I incorporated a thumbnail. I don't know if that made a difference because the other ones I did. So I guess I'm trying to also see like what all can I at least do, since it doesn't really. It's like the system does not has not been well, has not attracted to my studio. It's to my understanding. So I need to sort that and then um, get that figured out in some way. Um, then yeah, which I mean I can handle that. I mean I'm okay with that for now. I'm just trying to get some very specifics. I So far to my understanding, I did quite well in the morning, but right now I'm working and I also need to do a little bit of research. So in my brain, I'm thinking maybe, when it calms down, I can do a little bit of reading. Hi, hi UNC. So, okay. So it's yeah, it's gonna, I guess, do its own thing. Hope everybody is having a great evening, finding your way. Um, my busyness is simmering down because right now on my side everybody's working, so I'm letting them work. I'm like, fulfill your, I'm being motivational, like fulfill your all of your inspirations. Low key, I'm like, I want to go live. I will go live and enjoy myself as soon as I have time, but I need to make sure that I do my job first. I gotta do the work. Hello. So I'm figuring out the ins and outs of how things work. So I am back, a clean slate. Yeah. Oh, and I'm just now attracting. So yeah, I'm new. So there you go. I'm going to be like quite alive. That's a good thing. I'm not burnt out. Not when I just started, literally. So yeah, I just started having experiences like these. So yeah, you're gonna get a lot out of me between now and the time that you get burnt out. No, my information is gonna change. Like my information is gonna change literally in like 10 days anyway. Every year, August 15th, it never fails. I always learn something new. You would see. Well, somebody got a great have a shout out. They must be. It must be nice somebody to shout you out like that. So welcome. And hello. I hope all is well and everything is moving accordingly in your mind's eye and your vision for the future, whatever the directions are for you. Yeah, yeah. So you've now, well, welcome. You've just now entered into the wonderful world of education and degrees, particularly in science, particularly in also metaphysical sciences. So yeah, we're very well read. We write, and my clients won't even like, they want me to write them and inspire them. So I have to literally write to them before they will contact me about their life stuff. It's kind of like a big, I don't know, like, are you centered? I'm like, I have to write you, you know, paragraphs, for you to get a good feeling about something that is going to reflect more on your side. I'm going to do the job 5 stars. I'm 5 stars on all my platforms. So yeah. So well, welcome. And I definitely will require you to think, by the way. So that's another thing about me. I don't run the kind of space where you come to relax. Like, I get you mentally stimulated. Like, you have to be like participating in mental things. Yeah, I don't test, but I mean, I respect the spiritual. Like, I respect that spirit is intellectual. So I always will speak to you in a way that, like, hey, I'm like, hey, you're helping me to brainstorm too. We're creating. We're not. This is not one sided. Where you get your spiritual vitamins. That's not what this is. By the way, I tend to literally, like, get people encouraged, if you will, to begin really taking life, their own life particularly, into their hands. And then they can do the amazing things that they're called to do, whatever it is that their dreams are. So that's pretty much how my lives are gonna go. Like, from like now and also future wise. Skin. So I hope you can handle that, but it's all for a good reason, because I always say, well, you'll have this information for the rest of your life, at least this one, and you'll grow and become something or someone. If you're lucky, you'll take on the universe, the universal concept of, your spiritual path, the path that you're meant to follow. You're meant to follow a path, but in order to follow that path, you have to kind of like understand the way that spirit operates throughout the universe, but particularly the way you are reacting with the universe, working with the universe. So yeah. So anyways, so questions about anything in the metaphysical department, even the quantum. You can talk about, dimensions. There's people who, they're a bit tapped in. Like, somebody was speaking to me about numbers, and they didn't know that we don't just read numbers for the sake of them, but also numbers tell you. It's kind of like the neighborhood in the psychic world. If the psychic world was a neighborhood, numbers would be the place where you're located. I mean, there are travelers who said that they've gone over there and, and drew out the spirit world, which is, you cannot. It's vast and it's subject to change. That's the thing. um, yeah. And you can also subject change, like, you can impress upon your environment and change landscape. So, yeah. So, anyway, So how do you know where people are then spiritually? Well, it's through sometimes through numbers. Not it's not just the numerology part, but numbers will definitely tell a person where they are, residing or hanging out, so to speak. Of course, then it becomes something it could be relatable to the 3D world, but then also spiritually as well. Yeah. So so there's that. Oh, so that subject. Um, Anything dealing with psychic, you know, anything dealing with um, the script. I like to say the golden rules of this world, like golden keys of wisdom, universal scriptures, things like that. Uh, these are subjects that I cover pretty quickly. Um, then, oh, and I since I work with people from all over the world, this space is definitely for everybody. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. So, yes. Like for example, if you had a problem with like many people, different people in a space, I would probably say, like request a time to speak to me on your own, because that is what I'm creating. I'm creating where I would love to imagine an auditorium filled with people from all over the world, Europe, whatever, India, it doesn't matter, anywhere in the world, Australia, France, whatever, America, of course. And just in the auditorium, they're just, they're strangers, but they're like I'm here getting my life. So like that's the environment I wish to create also for my room. So this is not going to be a hangout space for, I do like controversial things, but with that said, I participate obviously, right, in those things. So I'm only going to speak from my perspective, and my perspective is not um, cornerstoning into one specific designated space. So, anyways, yeah. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna create the same vibrations the way that I work, actually with clients from all over the world. Of like they're amazing. The same I'm going to create here in my channel. So if you are okay with that, I welcome you. But this is not like what do you call it? Inside voice group. It's not an inside voice group, I promise. It's not like we all believe the same thing type of thing. It's not even close. I will challenge you, in fact, to have your own mind. And I give many chances until it's done. So it takes a lot before I call the card, but pretty much it's yeah, be a communal individual. Yes. So if you like community, this is the space for you. Absolutely. So we welcome everyone, and if you want to fist fight, if you're a male, if you like to fist fight, as I know I look sweetheart, but I will fist fight you. I will have no problem grabbing you by the collar and setting you outside. I do, I do follow, the textbook of the Greek gods. So, like I said, when I had enough, you will be knowing that I had enough. And wherever you started at, that's where you get it at. If it's in the public, we in the public, this is where you wanted it, this is where you're gonna get it. Okay? And just because I didn't throw it, I excuse the ladies, but don't think there's some soft, you know, uh, uh, parenting here for you ladies as well. Stay in line, mind your manners. I'm not your pastor. I'm not your prophet. Whatever you choose and how you choose to do whatever with them, you can, but you will not do that here. We will expedite your future. Everything I said will come true, but we'll make it happen faster so you can transcend, so to speak. Yeah. So, so are we good? So now I know you, and now you know me, where I'm coming from. You can say what you want, okay? But when I act on it, I already talked, I already said what I needed to say. Is that okay? That okay? Is that not okay for me to? I can say that. I mean, you all are enjoying saying whatever you want to say, so I'm just taking the time to say what I want to say, and I'll leave it at that. So back to yeah. Yeah. I'm right now. Okay. So what are you doing right now that's productive and a little bit more respectful? Thank you for your time. I and right now I'm reading a couple of books centered around some principles of that are universal principles, so I'm enjoying my time. I actually can put up on my phone. So I'm lying in bed, and I'm like just kind of like reading. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. I'm like feeding my soul, and so I'm finding different things that right now is encouraging for myself because I have to. Okay, so I believe that like a household, it's the parents who are the pillars. So the parents must have an adult life. They have to have a life separate from their children. Because some parents they'll say, "I do everything for my children, all this and all that," but they are miserable. And it's like, yeah, you're living. Even though they're your children, and you're prioritizing them, you're not living. You're living for someone else. You're not really living. And besides, if you're not healthy, they're not healthy. If you're not protected, they're not protected. So, being that I have people who I work with all over the world, that's my path. Uh, I have to be a strong pillar because when I'm a strong pillar and I'm a structure, I'm protecting those people who reside under, who are around me. I won't say under me, but around me, at least. I will say that. And I'm just kind of like, I just help them get to their journey. So, um, yeah. So I help them, fulfill the dreams that they're meant to fulfill. Sometimes it is like, we call it emotional, heart related. People come for me or speak to me, interact with me for many reasons. When I'm Yeah, it's a very odd situation. They want me, yet they want not me. So I always have this sort of. I tend to, which you'll see a lot, by the way. I tend to create this sort of barrier, and it's only because that's the professional side. I'm protecting the identity. It's not it's not that I'm detached. It's just that people, when they like, I'm in a realm where people can tap into their deepest, feelings, and there's really not a boundary on that. It's not a limit. Like if you speak to a therapist, who's like helping you through your emotions, so you poured out your heart and guts to this person for an hour. Now they're going to give it back to you and tell you like what's wrong with you. But I don't do that. Like you can do that with a therapist, right? Just like when you need to be scolded, you will go to your priest. But so I deal with a different area. I deal with the area of, like, when I always say in basic terms, when you need to just say, "Hey, I'm feeling a little selfish right now. I need to focus on me." That's when I come in. That's when I come in. If you speak it to me as a therapist, if I were a therapist, they'll listen to you. Then they're gonna say how much you're not listening to others. So though that's not what I do. I don't counsel. So I do guide, and of course I do have, like, papers that reflect, like counseling, and it's like, psychology and all that. But it's not for that. It's for like things that are metaphysical. So it incorporates as I'm working with a person. So they're telling me their desires, and I find that they just don't assert themselves well. Well, I don't stop to say, you know what? Did you know that you don't assert yourself very well in your things? So it's like what they call it, like what a therapist does, they call it like induction, so, or something like induction. So usually they do that like around like the first session or something like that. So what I tend to do is what I tend to do is a little different. What I do is like if they tell me, because a lot of times people say, no, I want you to tell me, show me you that you can do what you claim to do. So I just start talking to a person, and then basically when they do come in, they feel comfortable speaking with me about a particular area. I can always just go back to the informations I've already said. Like I'll say, well, just a little reminder, this little section here when I stated this is what it meant. And so it's like, so my conversations flow quite naturally. So you can see where that can get a little personal, because first of all, they don't know me, and then here I am telling them about, just right what's on the top of their mind. Like they text me and said, hey, I've got a story to tell you. It's about this, but let me know when you have enough time, because yeah, we're gonna need at least need 40 minutes to an hour. Like we skip that. We don't send You guys don't send me an email. I just very fresh, just start connecting. And then when I connect, I'm able to help guide you in the direction that's going to help you to find your journey or find your life. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, and if you're atheist, there are people who are atheists, who don't necessarily believe in like a deity, but they believe in themselves. Hence, like if you want to say intuition or special insight, they're able to fulfill that for themselves. That's just not a problem for them. So I don't. It doesn't matter. Like I don't care if you're atheist. If you have me on a case with you, you're gonna get the answers you need. There are people, they could be just as atheists. All they like they want to know about, you know who best to invest with, and which programs or software should they take on, the leader in their, amongst their engineer team, A and B, like, are they leaving soon, it has nothing to do with a person being atheist. It's as much as it have anything to do with them saying, well, I'm Christian, and only, and it's because I believe in God. Why in the world am I getting any type of insight from you? So, it's not about that. Mega church leaders and their adult children, have reached out. Rabbis, nuns, even surprisingly. Usually, the nuns actually reach out to me before they go into seminary. Yeah, because something about it, they explain like there's like a 2-year process and a third year. Then the third year, you kind of decide if you're ready or not. But it's like 4 years of preparation before they enter actually into seminary and become a nun, more or less. So yeah, they've reached out. And not to say if this is the right path or not, even they're reaching out because they're like preparing for that lifestyle, a long walk with, in their situation, Jesus Christ as their husband, and Yeah, and it works out. Yeah, so yeah, it doesn't. When I work with people, it doesn't have to become religious. I do enjoy religion. I like, particularly not particularly. I like the scriptures of all kinds, and I like the Bible. But I like the Hebrew Greek version of that text because it's different from what you would say my grandparents' Bible. It's written for very specific eyes. The book is so if you really want the spiritual side incorporated rather than taken out of it, so that the focus be on the principle, which is God. It does that for you, but it when it comes to where you're struggling and battle with your heart, no wonder they have sermons. Well, you have to have sermons about like the struggles in your heart about what the book says versus what your heart says. It's like then they say, oh well, you got to put the spirit in there with the book. It's not just the book. You got to put the spirit with the book, and then it gives you this compass to follow where now you feel better about easier about the way that the words are said to you. When we read it from the language that it's interpreted from, it's it lays it out so much easier in the heart, so much sweeter, and it also adds that nuance that's missing when it sounds like when people read the book, because there's something that triggers a person to say it's wrong, and they're not. I wish I could say that they were wrong to feel that way, but because I know that there's a difference between reading it from the Greek and the Hebrew to English versus just flat out going to go get a English or whatever, just a book, we know from the printer. There's a difference between, I can't fault them. They sense it. They can feel it in their spirit, as they say. They're just, everybody, even the most, let's say, not so knowledgeable of the spirit, of the words or the Bible, or even they know some of that, the way it's written at least, is not right. Obviously it doesn't, I'm saying it doesn't take a scholar to say, okay, it is an interpretation, it is the holy book, but there is a personal interpretation from someone else, you know, to another, part of the world, like Western culture. Yeah. So yeah, I like I like authority. Okay, I do believe in authority. I do believe in chains of command, but I don't really care for just completely. I don't want to think of like complete domination. I do want to believe that certain like the Constitution must dominate in the land. I believe like law can dominate, and if you have a problem with something, then go and fight to have it evolved, or something like to that effects. I definitely, I'm very careful on like, okay, first of all, what type of spirit is getting what kind of authority. um I would want to choose correctly. Like I wouldn't want somebody who hesitates too much. I wouldn't want to give them super authority. Um, you know. But so I like there's beautiful it's beautiful when you can trust a good leader, and like 99.9%, even, yeah, you can have your own thoughts, yeah, you can disagree, but most of the time pretty much they're doing the right thing, and they never cease to amaze you. They always surprise you with something you just not in the right space in your life to dream of. I want that kind of leader. I don't want a predictable leader. I don't want a leader that stalls to smack someone, for example, when a smacking is called for. Like, I don't want, somebody who just looks, and says, like an onlooker, and Well, nothing like that. I don't want anything like that because, you know, at the level of if you're talking about government, that those are kind of things that come back around like a boomerang. And he's like, I wish we'd done something better with that, when it's too late, things like that. So, I mean, I like I like authority. Like I definitely I love law enforcement of all kinds. I love army. I love all that. So yeah, because frankly, I need it. I needed to keep the jury, like uh, keep them professional, keep them keep them focused or aligned with something much like for a more unified cause, even if you will. So yeah, I do like authority. I love authority. Yeah. I am okay. So I made some psychic predictions. I can love Israel, but be upset about what's going on. Like I made some psychic predictions that state that how it's in the book of Isaiah, by the way. The story is about where Israel is beginning to they want to sit on God's throne. They want to be they want to exalt their throne, and they want to be as high and higher than the moon and the stars. And then of course, as you read, it brings up Arab, which would be Palestinian. It would be the Arab kingdom nation. And so it states that like uh, like it is pointing out things that Israel do that's even biblical, like taking when they kicking people out of their homes, taking up their land and things like that, and making it difficult, for them to thrive. I do believe also, with that said, which that gave me the permission spiritually to consider Palestinian as like a community, like people. But then there is something I separate the people from the Hamas, and then Hamas I do not pray for at all from these lips. I stated that these people can, like they need to be absolutely dealt with because I already know with my, you know, they're the same with Putin. They're not going to stop their course. Some people, you know how they say if you're truly magical, right? Are you truly you got prophetic abilities, or you're some kind of Jesus Christ, or how come Jesus Christ? Now we get to the point. How come Jesus Christ, who can raise the, how come he didn't raise all the dead? You know why? There's some people alive when they die, they need to stay dead. Some people need to stay dead, meaning there are some people who earn their spot, and they're not going to change. And that would be and your why I am on Israel's side when it comes to Hamas, and Israel must overcome Hamas because Hamas is endangering the Palestinian people, not just Israel, but they're harming Palestinian people. So that in that sense, I'm pro them. Now I can, because they're human, I can say, okay, they're not. They handle things, and sometimes humans. It's not that they're not perfect. It's just that they felt it simpler to do a bad job, a bad sloppy work. Like I've come to realize, okay, I can work with people from anywhere in the world. I don't care if you're from the rural South. I don't care if you're from Northern Europe, Ireland. I'm going to work with you, and you're going to get the best treatment. If you're a queen from Africa, literal literally, not figuratively, royalty from Africa. I'm going to work with you and give you excellent service. Now, I know that some people cannot give, it's just because they just can't. They cannot give that same service to everybody. And so, in my mind, I'm thinking, yes, Israel could have handled the food shortage and how they weren't really like figuring out ways that they could get aid to the Palestinian people because they the argument is, and it is true, because uh, earlier on Hamas was in charge of that aid. And by the way, Hamas is was the government, so you had to so you basically overthrowing that government also, but also they were okay. So the aid had to pass through Hamas, and that's it. And the Hamas would tell these people are hungry. Well, while you're hungry, what better cause than to go stand out there and go cause trouble? And which, by the way, in the Bible, Jesus Christ never asks, not even someone who is in bondage, I mean slave, to sacrifice their livelihood. And that's why he said, obey people. I know this is going to sound weird, but when it says, people obey, people who are in bondage, obey your earthly masters. What does that mean? What, with good cheer? No, no. He's saying, while I change and bring in the solutions that's going to break these systems that are hardwired into the consciousness of humanity. I'm not requiring you to do more than what you're willing to do or that you can. And in fact, I'd rather you live a thriving life, find your way out of your circumstance, perhaps even, if you're blessed, be free someday, but not like, right, like, okay, you have to rise up, and full on well that turning over table, whatever, and in the middle of a house, and you have family, children, of 8, and a wife and her sister, and the aunt in the back. And no, Jesus Christ didn't ask for that. He asked opposite. He said, look, we're going to get this solved. It's going to take some time. Know that when you serve the earthly master, that you're actually serving Jesus Christ, not me. You're actually serving Jesus Christ. So that's the real interpretation. But see, you all don't have that in your book. That's what I just said is not in this one. Okay. And it is the one. But I'm making it very clear. Okay. I even have visual aid. So that's why I'm for Israel in the sense that to deal with Hamas. Um, Now, another thing, Israel is house of Jacob. So, and Palestinian people, though Arab. Okay, so when Israel enters into Canaan, that land, right? Uh, Egyptians, Arab, Palestinian, entered with them. As the in the not in this one, but it was 3 groups that actually resided and also peacefully in the land of Canaan. Besides the Canaanites, obviously, who are already there, who also are Semitic. Then there's Israel, and then there's the nations that entered the land with Israel. So hence, when it becomes house of Jacob, right? The other nations or Palestinian people for this conversation, they're a part of that. They were engrafted, by the way. And so, in terms of, well, if you're Jewish and if you're this or that, okay. So now think about it. When Abraham, um, and gets with Hagar, right? Hagar would be the mother of basically Arab or Egypt, right? So they had a son. The son was Ishmael. So what was Ishmael? You might naturally in our discriminatory thoughts, we would say, uh, Muslim. No. Abraham, okay, so, oh, by the way, okay, so he had Ishmael, the Arab child, son first. Then he had the Israel child next, right? Israel came right after. So who's older? But so the reason why I say this is the father would have to take the eldest son to experience the rites of passage after 7 becoming a man, which is the circumcision. So who got the circumcision? Was it his son from his Jewish wife or from his Egyptian, you want to say, second wife? Who's the eldest? Yes, Ishmael got that circumcision. He got the circumcision. He was amongst the boys of his age to have the rites of passage of a child born the into a Jewish family, handed down from his father, right? His earth father, Abraham. Abraham had many sons. Okay, so now let's speed this up a little bit. Now let's just say it all together. So before, okay, Moses had to bless everybody and engraft everybody before they were allowed to enter into Canaan, which means people of other nations were made into the tribes. They were absorbed into the tribes before entering. Oh, and that's not in. No, no. So, racist. Your book is racist. No, I'm just kidding. No, no. That means that it was multi. You know, it was multi a lot of different things in terms of, well, it moved towards one religion, as they would you would end up stating, but from nations at least, from nations, definitely ethnicity. In fact, the first chapter before you get to the scriptures that you all use to explain slavery, there's a chapter before that one, and you say, apples and oranges, right? But that's not the way. That's not the way of Yahweh. Yahweh actually commanded Moses. It was a Egyptian husband and Israel woman. They had a child, obviously, would be, I guess, biracial. And yeah, and the other, the other Israel were giving him beef. So this has been going on for a long while. This sort of, I'm me and you're you. That's been going on since forever, right? We're talking about Moses, right? They're not even established there yet. It's already going on. That's why they wandered the 40 years. It wasn't all because they were like, oh gosh, what's in there? It's because they were asking Moses, like, why these people keep following us around? I know they're not trying to come in and share, like, what we're gonna do. Like this is, the land is promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is not who they think they are. That was that conversation. As it's called murmuring. Like every time when you read, and when God is saying, "Yeah, I heard your murmurings," and he explicitly explains what he heard. So yeah, but okay, but I digress. So okay, so speed this up a little bit. So what I'm saying is that indeed there were, in fact, if you need genealogy, genealogists found Palestinian people, farmers, not warriors, farmers, um, in the land of Canaan. Also, there was a city there, no war, like we all, we think about no war. It was like a thriving city, but they found five intact enough, I guess, corpses, Palestinian, that traces them back to Canaan. Or like they were living there in Canaan as farmers, cohabitating with, that would be Israel. Even today, you can't change the story right in front of you. Like, how in the world did Palestinians get there? Yes, they've been cohabitating since the whole story practically began. They started the same story together. If you go back, tracing it back to bringing it to Moses, from the very beginning, when you if you're Israel and you the seas part, it's not just you who's walking through and walking across. You there are Egyptians with you in a mist of you, if you believe that story. But anyways, they're there. They're there. Palestinian people are there. There's no doubting that. Yeah, so that's why I believe that they could treat their people better, because I think of it as script. If they bring up the Bible a lot, Old Testament, I promise, Old Testament, they are occupying the same house. Now, of course, this is the real world, and a lot of stuff happened in our history, and they said, "Look, we want our own identity." That's cool. Look, in fact, we've got they got the Quran, and which is like New Testament, and ties into Old Testament. They respect all of the prophets, and they said, "Look, we even respect the Old Testament and the New Testament. It's no big deal. We just want our own identity." I can understand why that's important, but nonetheless, they are still Semitic, no matter how you want to spin it, because Ishmael was embraced and was treated just like a full on son, because he was a full on son. He wasn't treated like half a son, and he wasn't sent away. There's some stories. I've even heard this story from my own, that she had she was sent away, and she stayed away, and she went on, and she raised up the princes who would then bring up the Arab kingdom. But that's a very dark read, story. But that's the way. But then now you go back and you come to find out, actually, he was very, they were very, an angel said, "What are you doing? Go back, because who you carrying right now is very important. Ishmael is very important. He's going to be a prince. Go back. You'll be fine." He's like, "Are you okay?" Like, then Abraham was like, "He like, are you okay?" And then Galatians, it talks about Hagar growing. That everybody makes fun of Hagar, but she was not a mistress. In fact, the Bible kind of makes jest at people who try to have stories about Hagar, misrepresenting her as who. Well, at least she grew up in where when Jerusalem was free. She lived like a free woman, and she did what women like to do. She was like be a mother, for example. And then it made a little funny. It said that like those women who don't have children, be thankful, because where you get stuck with, it says something to the effects of, like, you could be in Hagar's position and have to deal with Abraham. So yeah, that's in Galatians. It's like she had to do with Abraham. She had to raise kids, and so then, just be thankful that you don't have to do that. So apparently, she had a nice life. She had a very, very, like, good, and where in her time, could thrive. And that's why, in that sense, I'm supportive. But see, that's called critical thinking. That's critical thinking, what I've just displayed. This is critical thinking. So you got your reading, you got your writing, you've got your critical thinking. These three. These are the three sins. Do them, and do them a lot. Okay, there you go. Whew. So, so that gets you all caught up. See, critical thinking. Okay, Hamas was elected in power. Critical thinking gets you this: when when we don't, I like power. I don't want wrong people having that power. Critical thinking allows me to put in place the person who is agreeable for that position. So likewise, uh, again, if Hamas is harming Palestinian people, that means Hamas is harming their own people. Like, So critical thinking allows you to bridge between those two ideas. There's a synapses because we classify. Okay, here's Hamas. It's its own subgroup. It's made it into its own social subgroup. But they're still. Then you say, but they're still They're Palestinian. They are Palestinian. Okay, but they created their own social group, right? In a social, societal, blah, blah, blah. And here is Palestinian people, as in people who just want to go to work today and make sure that they actually have food and actually have a place to go lay their head. And hopefully they'll get that other than a stone and a big pile of dirt. Okay. So then, yeah, but so critical thinking allows you to say, these people, they don't really deserve this people. When you're a person in a leadership role, you inherit those people when you inherit the problems, right? So you don't want to like you wouldn't want to put somebody above you who they 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 don't and they don't accept you as as a gift responsibility. They don't accept you, nor do they respect you, because that means they're probably not going to respect the problems, the issues that uh, people who are elected should seek to fulfill. Like there's a problem right now that they could be solving. They could have solved months ago and refused to do so and also at the expense of their own the civilian portion, the part the part that's separated. Okay, so that's what critical thinking does for you. So that's just what it is. Hmm. It says, how can people live under so much suffering, expect them to fight back? Yeah, no, yeah, no, because the Palestinian people are not in a place of fighting back, but Israel is. Israel is in a place of fighting for civilian people, not fighting the Palestinian people, just as much as Israel is in place of fighting Hamas, who is a direct threat to, again, Hamas is a direct threat to the Palestinian people who can't even defend themselves. They can't even defend themselves. They don't, they don't, they don't, they don't defend themselves. They don't have anything to defend themselves with. They don't even have food. It's kind of like okay, you're allowed to okay, let them fight, but you have to fight with a 5-year old on your arms trying to calm down your 7-year old, trying to tell your woman not to get in the way, like whose side is she on? You know, women, they're gonna be like, no, no, don't, there's no call for this, you know, you know getting all the shine, like she's not gonna be like, just let me handle this. No, that's not how it's going over there. So yeah, then you've got they've got kids that are just stranded. Like, okay, we're in the West. There's if some kid is stranded or out walking at the middle of the night, even even if the child says, "Well, I'm just kind of hungry. I'm kind of looking," no, it's not going to fly, right? The law enforcement is gonna swoop in, and you'll never hear of that. That's embarrassing, you know. So yeah, so that's what I'm saying. They're not in a position to do anything, but Israel is in a position to, yeah, they do have to, I guess, sort of like, okay, like sneaky Hamas, right? Sneaking in there, acting like, civilians mixing in, things like that. And, somehow getting messages back, well, okay, so food truck on its way, as they were doing, running off with the whole food truck, not allowing Palestinian people to have that. A real leader will say, you know what? It's tough right now. We got to make some decisions. If nothing else, we can at least make sure We'll make sure that they get their food. Like, we're not going to intercept it. We're not going to blow it up. We're not going to tell the people, by the way, hey, if you can accept bones and gristles from us, but if you go get boxes full of food from um, Israel or anyone else, I mean, we will mess you up. That's what they were told. So that's not a leader who is residing over you, who cares about the important issues of the land for this time. So this is what happened. This is literally things that happened. The Palestinian people actually were threatened that if they try, they would be eliminated. If they try and go get the aid. By the way, the aid were also being intercepted by whom? Hamas. Now, Israel or and the other U.S. All those people have a way to make sure that not we're not trying to get aid to Hamas. We don't no, but we don't care about what Hamas got going on. We want our prayer is Palestinian children, wives, and um, uh, disenfranchised men. That's it. That's it. Vulnerable men, Palestinian children, and the women who are most likely wives. Making sure that they have that what they need. That's it. That's it. And then the rest is whatever. Whatever. The rest is whatever. There's no prayer there. It's only prayer that. And by the way, the good news, they're getting food now. They're getting boxes and boxes, and finally, and they're so that it's working. So that's a good thing. So two thumbs up. But yeah, they know what they have to do. They definitely have to go ahead and finish up with Hamas, no matter what you may think. You know, um, sometimes that's what it means to be a leader. You have to know what's best for people who are highly intelligent, smart, have they're lawyers, etc. Some work in government, but sometimes like a leader has to say, but that leader has a vision for a future that is most promising, and though they don't understand at the moment, but watch and see, they're going to be complaining as their lives are like expanding and they're growing and they're thriving. They'll be complaining in the lush and fruitfulness in our abundance. You'll see. Like, for example, the argument was, well, we don't have enough, we don't have enough, we don't have enough, we don't have enough, we don't have enough. Now we're bringing in billions and billions and billions and billions. So now you can't say we don't have enough, we don't have enough, we don't have enough. We just don't want to, we just don't want to, we just don't want to. You weren't okay. So no one was going to any war, not even to Ukraine's war. You were never going to be drafted or anything like that. That was like years ago. It was pretty plain. It was like, look, we don't need that. We can fight for ourselves. We just need the means. So just ask you for the means. So and and so it was. They received the means. Yeah. So anyway, so there's that. Mm-hmm. 1 second. I'll be right back. I'm back. Yeah. So yeah, so that's that. The only reason why I'm able to talk on these things because I made predictions around these things. So I followed it as I was making predictions. So yeah, so that means if I'm making predictions, it's regardless of what I think it and feel like the leaders should make their decisions. But I know the information is right. I'm definitely unified, with this, with my, from where the information comes from. I'm unified in that. So I guess I'm me, and I just know that my information is correct. I just know my information is, if it's 100, is then it's 100 times 100. That's about 1,000, right? That's right. So yeah, I'm just correct. This was 100% correct. The information is correct. The predictions is correct. Everything that needs to happen, why it's correct, and it doesn't. But y'all, I know you got to do your job. You got to do your job, but it was something that it was laid on me with the information. So I read, well, I articles as these things were happening, and I just kept just posting it, placing that on my timelines, like here, here, here. Of course, I did writings on it, on the subject. So it's like, well, here, 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 but not like in terms of look what I predicted, more like following the timeline, sort of. So I'm like following the timeline. It's not for me to say, I was right. Look what I can do. No, no. Look how much I know. It's not about, that's not what, it wouldn't even, it's not enough, because you need facts, and people are really good at having those details. So yeah. So the article points to the prediction itself with the details, but the details that I'm more concerned with are how does it align with, well, predictions, the universe, but also scripturally. You're like, yeah, even scripturally, it has to align. It has to make sense. And because people, like, their thoughts translate into what they think it is, which is going to be, it becomes religious. I know people say I'm not, I don't believe in this or that, but then their work becomes something a bit like, well, now they're prophesying. Look, I prophesied this, or I predicted this. Take out your crystal ball and see, let us see, and so then that means it's becoming spiritual. Now it's, okay, now we're altering the landscape, across dimensions. That's all I'm saying is there's a learning curve there. There's a learning curve there. That's all I'm saying. Oh yeah, you don't have to respect my opinion. You are entitled to your opinion. Leave it to me. I'm supposed to if I believe in what I'm saying, but mine is not an opinion. An opinion is something you think. It's not what I think. That's why whenever I'm connected with spirit, I leave my 2 cents out of it. It has nothing to do with this nose, what's going to actually play out in the world. I have also a profound understanding. I don't need an interpreter to tell me why it has to happen, why it has to be this way. I can already tell you why it has to happen this way. I don't need an interpreter. I am so lucky to being American, whatever it is, if you want to say mystic, because yeah, the according to the book, to my understanding, it didn't go so well for people who were gifted with the sight in the other parts of the world. Yeah, 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 yeah. So like I'm an American. I got my Second Amendment. I protect my and stand on my prophecy. But I could, first of all, I can prophesy. I can make a psychic prediction openly, boldly, and not feel like I'm risking my neck. Yeah, I can say that. But I'm trying not to say, well, my second reading said, I'm trying not to be like that. It's just, like the things that I'm talking about factually happened already. I'm only telling you things that's already happened. I'm not telling you anything new. These things you already either know or you can already pretty much if you follow the line, you will see that's where you are right now. You cannot miss the fact that we say a starving people, a starving population are now walking around with boxes of food. They got that food from somewhere. That's my point. I was only intrigued. I wasn't even interested. I don't even care about the whole Hamas thing. I have no opinion on it. But I only prayed that the children and the women and the vulnerable men they get the the aid they need. That's it. That's only where I insert myself. I'm just saying I give it all up. I give it all up. It's not mine, and I give it to whatever's over there. Yeah, but yeah, I don't like have an opinion. I don't draw. I don't even think. Somebody said I'm just trying to get you to think. No, it's like that doesn't require thought. You just all I have to do is listen to spirit, and then it says it, and then I repeat it, and I give it back to you. I have the easiest job in the world. It's literally repeating what someone else said. So yeah. Hmm. Yeah, like everything. Yeah, it's just it's not. Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't care what I think at all. Mm-mm, mm-mm. Specifically to this subject, it doesn't care. Yeah, yeah. Like I know things like, okay, here's a good one as one of them. Okay, Israel. In the genesis of America. We talk about George Washington. George Washington, established a covenant with Israel, right? When they came away from Spain or sent away by Spain. In other words, Spain was like, either you're gonna like be a part of our religion, which is Muslim, or you can leave. They said, "We'll leave," which they've had to do. That's their journey. That is worthy of being called a like religious persecution specifically. Keep that right there. So when they came to America, right, and why did America? Why did the future of America leave Europe? Religious persecution. That was the common ground. So George Washington, when they created, in fact they created the 10, like the 10. You ever thought the 10 Commandments, the 10 Articles, 10 Commandments? Yes, that happened. They like it was passed along, and the Jewish community of that era had a say, and they even formulated closely to what resembles the 10 Commandments, hence 10 Articles. And most importantly was, okay, you're going to be here. You're a naturalized citizen of the United States of America. So they were made citizens immediately, right? No fighting for them. They immediately. Wow, that's like invitation. You're invited to come join and come be American, or American citizenship. That is made okay. Beautiful. By the way, the first president, if you don't know, the first president of who I refer to as the father, the first father, and then and he said there will be no. George Washington says there will be no room or refuge for religious persecution, anti-Semitism, and you know what? Those he says, I make covenant with you right there. The Father made covenant with Israel. So it's America who extended the covenant to Israel, not the other way around. But that bond, that covenant, that blood covenant is so powerful that it's unbreakable. And that's why my point is, yes, the First Amendment, has protect the First Amendment for many reasons. First Amendment, the whole point of, you know, kind of working with the Jewish community and others to formulate the Constitution was like, you know, protection of like religious rights, specifically religious persecution. That was the focus. That's also the common ground, and then also the First Amendment, things like that. But all of the amendments, all of them, I mean, all of them, every single one of them, the articles. I said articles earlier. All of the amendments that they have, all of the amendments. So, so all the way to Trump, you know, like anyone who's in that position, that is interwoven in our from the Genesis uh, Jewish community. In fact, they still live in Newark over there. They still live New York. They still live Washington. Still to this day. And yeah, they are continued. There, it's a legacy, and I'm pretty sure that George President, the first president, is very proud of them. They've taken care of that space. You know, they were given money for schools or education to start literally a community of their own. You know, so yeah, so they were not only received well, but they were welcomed and ushered in. And I'm saying they rolled out the complete uh, leeway and called them also, of course, you know, like because of who you are, you know, because you're Israel, we're going to do this. And that's the mindset of George Washington. Oh, another interesting point to this. When did he do it? He did it on, it was on a Thursday, I believe it was like the 26th. He did it on a Thanksgiving day. That was when he officially declarized uh, Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving isn't what we think it is. Thanksgiving is actually between Christians and Jewish people, communities coming together and praying. That's what, and then it was, that of course it was made official by Abraham Lincoln. So, so you there's so many spiritual, deeper, related, metaphysical reasons why it's it's even though you know people want different, well, they're not gonna get that, or at least not anytime soon. They're not going to get like a complete disassociation from having to support Israel. They're just not going to get it. It's most likely they were here like when like, they were here at the signing of the like they actually said, oh well, while you're writing that up, you know, how about you kind of shape it like the Ten Commandments? You know, I'm telling you, they were like the genesis of America. They're kind of built in, you know, as many of, you know, the peoples here are built in. Anybody can say that, well, I'm built in too. Yeah, you are. So then why are you trying to leave? Or like, why would you expect them to leave? And they're not going to leave. That's an entire genealogy, like legacy. They're not, no. And plus that the story that went on before they came to America, which we talk about Spain, the things, you know, and then they already did their little tour in the world. So most likely they're like, oh no, we're good. Especially when you compare like lifestyle here versus anywhere else in the across history. You know, it's even rivaling when they were in bed with German people as free people. You know, when things, you know, before it became something domestic, and then it went, yeah, then it went crazy. That's a whole other thing, of course. Um, Unequivocally, must never ever happen again, and it shouldn't happen to any group, and including this should not, because we know that, you know, the Holocaust happened with Jewish people, then we should with extra concern should not allow this to happen like right next door to Israel, like Palestinian people. It shouldn't be done that way, neither. So, um, no, no, but it shouldn't be done that way. Um, Yeah, but we respect that, of course. And we talk about morals here. We're not talking about some fantasy tribe, No, there are mortals, and people have their own. When I speak to a person, regardless if they are royalty, regardless if they're diplomat, regardless if they're just I guess normal, regular people, celebrity, or person who just works on cars. Everybody has their own intentions. Everybody's trying to be free from something. Even people who like, how much freer can you be? You know. So right, and even they want something. So everybody wants something. It doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter who you are. You want something. We just need to figure out what is it you want, and how much worth it is. How worth it is it to you if you get it or to obtain it? Oh my gosh! It says, have you read Marx? I only read no. Only reason why I walked by Marx is because I needed to understand candidates. And this is also speaking of Marx, this is why you all would not choose. Okay, so there's a I guess Republican youth kind of would like Bernie Sanders, except one thing. Um, he's if he okay, I don't know the right terminology, which words it is, but it's a little slight hint of Marxism, but it's if he were what's the if it's like if okay, so it uses two words that are kind of like a compound, but you can interchange them. Well, he chose the one that you all would dislike. So I even know like a little like metaphysically what's keeping because he's on the precipice where if Bernie Sanders was just about career, he could take off. That just literally reinventing himself and and leaning more towards the right. If he did that, he's already on the precipice. I mean, man goes live and he's got like 400,000 people like hanging out with him. The top celebrities can't even do that. They can't even pull 1,000. But he is like people and all his videos have like hundreds of thousands of views, millions of views. It's like he just letting you know what's up. So I even know that answer. So yeah, I did have to study a little bit, and also I had to get into like the Red Scare to make sure you guys don't make a prophecy about end times and nuclear warfare, things like that. Israel left Spain in the 1400s. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's pretty. That's yeah they did. Um, Yeah, they did actually. They left. Well, they weren't just they were asked to leave. They were asked to leave, but when they when they left, George Washington invited them to become U.S. citizens like first day. Like they were given citizenship like very quickly. They people make fun and say, "Oh yeah, you came on boats and you'll leave on a boat," and then they have like little yachts. No, no, no. Let me tell you, no, 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 no. They may have come in boats, but no, they didn't come by way that would they would recognize as something that is of like a dark road. Yes, it is dark. The fact that they were religiously persecuted and discriminated against. Yes, yes, yes. But at the same time, they didn't come by way of like the transatlantic slave trade, for example, anywhere near it. Neither did the South Americans. So neither did Mexico. Mexico um, there's two things that they wanted. They had a black at the time they had a black president who helped fight for their independence, right, from Europe or Spain. But under the guarantee that they get to keep their Catholic religion and that their government system would be like royalty. They wanted the royal, like, like government system. Those were only two uh, like requirements that they would agree with Spain. Spain would agree with them to give them independence. By the way, that's Spaniards actually are what who's at play on the stage in Mexico at this time. So it wasn't you say, here come the Spaniards in big ship in your brain. No, Spaniards were present already there. They were already there. And those were linked to, so it wasn't that they were fighting for, like, again, they didn't come by way of transatlantic slave trade. They had their own fight. They had their, like, the Europe came over religious persecution, persecution religiously and by identity. That's Jewish people. Uh, uh, I don't want to say Mexico, South and Central America. Theirs were, like, we want to run our own business, run it the way we want to run it. Now, the black president had his own initiatives, which was, okay, if I win this fight for y'all, I'm also fighting for the freedoms of black people. That's when why they say Mexico was the first to free their slaves. Well, first of all, they had a black president who facilitated that by winning the independence for, hence, Mexico. So anytime Cinco de Mayo happens, it's probably why you always get the sense, like, why is there a black, like, one little black element, or, like, why is there a figure or something of a great importance? I never could quite put your finger on it. And then when you finally get old enough to kind of snoop and read the book for yourself rather than somebody dictate it to you, come to find out that, yeah, the president that got them their independence was not only black, but also he's the reason why the black people in South Central America were free, or in Mexico area. So when they celebrate, yeah, well, we're the first, yeah, but you had a black president. That black president, by the way, personality would have been much equivalent to, like, Obama, but in that era. So they had basically an Obama. So there you go. Yeah. So again, theirs was religious freedoms. So, like, they wanted to keep their Catholicism, and specifically, and they wanted, the government, like, you know, different governments. They wanted royal, like, monarch, like, government. That's what they asked for, and that's, like, okay, we agree. So then that's how that happened. So all of this to say this, everybody found has a very specific path as they're finding their way in connection to America. The way that they have come about. They all have their own specific way. And for another group like myself to say, oh, you don't belong here, or trying to undo or untwine, it's like trying to untwine time. How are you going to untwine time? 1978. No, no. Hold on. I think you're trying to say that they weren't they were not around for American Revolutionary War, and that's the whole point. There were there were people who fought for their freedoms in the American Revolutionary War. Jewish people were given American citizenship upon arrival. But that's a good thing to know, because this lets you know that Jewish people were actually here during the time of the Revolutionary War. That is correct. That is correct. That is correct. Yeah. 17, yeah, you talk about the Revolutionary War, aren't you? The independence, but that was between. Of course, that's the correlation. Why? Do you know what? Okay, do you know that George Washington has written speeches that are actually in the files of Washington as America is becoming a corporation where he addresses Jewish community. He said that they belong here and that anti-Semitism will find no refuge here. He's the one that coined that statement. And then President Trump has used that statement that it will find no refuge here. But George Washington said it first. He would have said it first. He's the first father. That's what I'm implying. I'm only implying that their story, the way that their story, they tell it, by the way, they do, Jewish people do celebrate Thanksgiving. Because remember, uh, I love you, American Indians, but it's okay. So George Washington extends Thanksgiving to Jewish community because Christians and Jewish people can come together and fellowship, right? So they have essays. So every year, annually, somewhere in New York, they actually do a like a reading of everything that was said prayer wise regarding like commemorating the first president. That's how close and tie that they are. That's my. You cannot escape that. You cannot. That conversation is had, documented, and celebrated today. And you can now you can draw it up. I mean, yeah, well, for some reason I have to kind of like prep and like let you all know. I guess when I'm going live, otherwise you won't see me live. I guess, but I mean, I could get it together for you and show it to you. We can read it together, or you could read it on your own. You could read it on your own. Yeah, they've always, yeah. Spain took up become well, as Europe, right? Spain is Europe, by the way. Okay, so Spain is Europe, right? So Europe did embrace Muslim religion for a very long time throughout the 15, leading up to the 1500s. All, yeah, absolutely, all across. But let's see. No, when actually, we can even be specific. We will be specific. Yeah, they have a long history in the world. They were here. And they had free reign. They had free reign in the waters and travel. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. Look, it says George Washington Declaration in 1790. You said 1776. 1790 in Newport. That's where they still live too. Newport, in Newport. Hebrew congregation that this nation gives to bigotry, no sanction, to persecution, no assistance, provided the Jewish community with an early assurance of America's suitability as a haven. That is from the first father. That is not going to be undone. It says in okay. Oh, it says 1492. So like the end of the century. So you said 1400s. Here it says 1492. But who cares? What does that mean? That don't mean anything. It says, hold on. It says, what's that got to do with that? Okay, it says that they had like a 350 ring. Um, there's some 1654 stuff. Okay, so they spent. It says Portugal, something. Okay, so 1654, Portugal, Brazil expels Jewish settlers. See, they keep getting expelled everywhere they go throughout all that time until my point, I started from their journey towards exit, where they really start to take notice. It's from Spain. They leave Spain, make their tour, but they find themselves Newport. So that's important. That's what I'm saying. It says 1496 by the Jewish printers in Portugal. So the last ones were 1496. Yeah, so I mean, they were abroad. But that doesn't. Are you trying to get out of the fact that what George Washington? Well, they came in front of George Washington, and he made sure that they had this would forever be a safe haven for them forever. There's no way. There's no way. What are you gonna do? Say say something that, oh yeah, is clearly they weren't there. I didn't. What I illustrated was they they were kicked out of Spain because they had to be given a choice, because either assimilate or get out. And then it was like all over the place. I did mention, I said, look, and then they went, as it happened all over the world. Then finally get to America, where the common ground is. The common ground was, hey, like, we're persecuted the way we want to believe. You're persecuted the way we want to believe. Let's want to join forces. So that's my point in that. That's all that I stated so far. But I mean, you got to follow. It says, let's see, they went all, well, obviously all across the world, which that just which lead will lead you back here basically. And by the way, let me see. Um, uh, I guess that would be, yeah, yeah, they're still there. So yeah, that only substantiates what is being said. That just substantiates what it said. Their journey, they were there. They refused to become Muslim. They make their way here to America at the very start. See, you see what you should have put was a date that shows that after America was born, then they were present. But you didn't do that. They were here before. That's why I said the genesis of America. That means the beginning. They were here. In fact, and then furthermore I said they were here as the Constitution, the declarations, all that is being, the articles and all that amendments are being written. They're like right there. And they're, in fact, and so they were so right there that they're saying, "Hey, this should be the structure. You should format it like this." That's what I'm saying. So yeah. Hmm. Rhode Island, Newport, Rhode Island, Rhode Island, and they're thriving still there. And no, you can't take that away from them. Nobody can. They're in they're entrenched in blood. Okay, so what's okay, I know you don't really believe me about the whole Thanksgiving thing. So I'm claircognizant. I get information about stuff before it happens. It was 1789, October 3rd. It says George Washington issued the first national Thanksgiving proclamation on October 3rd, 1789. So, okay, so designating November 26th, so I'm talking about the Thanksgiving Day, as a day of public thanksgiving and prayer. So, yeah. And then, of course, when you ask, well, I don't think you can't just generally ask that. You got to say, let me see. Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, it skipped a whole lot. So let's say, let's add, why did he do it? The whole reading was, okay. Oh, by the way, it's also the Constitution is so, and of course all this is founded on, if this tells you that it was founded on the principles of the Bible, the God, specifically the God of the Bible. It says Thanksgiving Proclamation of 1789, George Washington's Thanksgiving Proclamation for the Jewish community. It says a Sephardic Thanksgiving uniting the whole community. A Sephardic Thanksgiving. Uh, yeah, I think I like this one. It says, by the President of the United States of America, a proclamation. Whereas he wrote this. This is his stuff, George Washington. It is in the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey His will, to be grateful for His benefits, to humbly to implore His protection and favor. And whereas both houses of Congress have, by their joint committee, requested me, that would be George Washington, President George Washington, to recommend to the people of the United States a day of public thanksgiving and prayer to be observed by acknowledging the grateful hearts and the many signal favors of Almighty God, all capital, all caps, except for, well, the first letter, especially by affording them an opportunity peaceably to establish a form of government for their safety and happiness. He consecrated, okay, so then it says, let me see. Okay, I'm gonna try to find the good stuff. Let me see. Great rulers, virtue. Is this the one? Okay, well, anyway, that was him speaking, but that's not the one that I was looking for, but that's a great start. Here's one of them. 1789, the first Thanksgiving sermon given by a rabbi. Uh, as soon as George Washington proclaimed the first Thanksgiving holiday in 1780, the very first Thanksgiving holiday, he proclaimed the very first Thanksgiving holiday in 1789. Some American Jews embraced the tradition right away. And it says Gershom Mendes, six, yep, he's the one, considered by some to be American Judaism's first public figure, was only 23 years old when he was appointed in 1768 as the cantor of New York's congregation, Shireth Israel. So New York, so yeah, they're living quite well. Okay, he can move about. He's chosen. He's 23 years of age. He's a public figure. First is considered to be the first public figure at that, at least for the Jewish community. And then says at the same time serving the New York's 300 Jewish residents, okay, so about 300 people, then housed in the First Mill Street Synagogue, located on what is today South William Street. Though never officially ordained as a rabbi, yeah, but he did a lot of work with in the subject, which is the president of his day. But let me see if I could find. Well, that's him talking. Um, okay, okay. Those talk about his sermon. Every time I go to study this, I have to always kind of like dig it. I have to go digging because it doesn't. Uh, it says Jews in America, as, including Sephardic Jews. This is says celebrated Thanksgiving. Jews in America have celebrated Thanksgiving from the beginning. From the beginning, Sephardic Jews included. It says when President George Washington initiated an official day of Thanksgiving in '89, congregation. It says, here it goes. The congregation shareth Israel, the Spanish and Portuguese. So from Spain, Portugal, by the way, that's all the same thing. Brazil, all that long. That's the longest running slave trade enterprise, or we already know that, right? Um, South America, blah blah blah. Okay, so the Spanish, you said 1400s. The Spanish and the Portuguese synagogue in New York, established in 1654. I know you said, yeah, but 1400s. They answered the call by integrating the Jewish prayers, namely selections, okay, into Thanksgiving celebration. So that's the intertwining where Christians' entanglement with Jewish people. Over the generations, Thanksgiving became a universal American holiday. Okay, so then it becomes a universal American holiday. The capacity to unite Ashkenazim and Sephardic Jews and non Jews, such as in the case in Seattle. Oh, okay, where's the good stuff? Any good stuff? Well, I think you got it. I think you got the point. It says, okay, so this rabbi, okay, no, that's irrelevant. Okay, anything good? Anything good? I think you got it. So that's what I'm saying. So when they, makes their way, okay, they end up in other parts, Brazil, Portugal, what we're saying is when they left Spain, when they the what do you call it? Diaspora, when they come to join and they find that common ground, they're cemented in American history. That's what I'm saying. They're cemented in American history. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Trying to get rid, trying to, I guess, move them out would be like trying to move yourself out. You're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. You belong here. They belong here. That's what I'm saying. That's the whole point. Mm-hmm. And this is why certain things are in place. This is why you are going to be supporting Israel. This is why. At least deep down, metaphysical, spiritual. And it doesn't, like I said, does. Now, my gifts don't care. If you're atheist, I can read for you. What I'm saying is, it does not, whatever is in charge of this does not care if one is atheist. You, by default, by just because you're by default, you're already not saying you're complicit or whatever. If that even means anything to any constellation, I don't. I think that we're there's what is wrong. There's some, I guess, wrongs being righted, so I won't use that. Complicit, yeah. Well, like anyone who makes errors, they see where they made mistakes and they can come in and do things correctly or do things better. Could they have done things better? Yeah, they know. They know they're on it. They're working on it. They're on it. Yeah. Hmm. So, and that's why the psychic predictions against prophecies, why it stands so strong, because it's rooted. It's I mean, it's just entrenched in blood and history, and life and catastrophe. You know, so yeah, spun out of like chaos and brought together, to create for the first time symbols that are just, they're searing to the mind's eye to look upon. You 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 just keep looking. You, 'cause they're just so imposing, and it's smoldering brilliance. Yeah. So yeah. So anyway, you can pretty much rest assured that whatever they do over there, they're gonna have to see it through, and you're just gonna have to be a passenger. You're gonna be even if you like, then you'll just be a passenger then. But to do nothing, also that's actually an action. Yeah, that's still an action. To do nothing is still an action. Kind of like speaking or not speak or choosing not to say something is still an action. So what are you saying? So what I'm saying is they're still going to have to deal with like Hamas, and that finally that we remove the Palestinian people into safety and and nourishment. So while they are going experiencing healing right now, Hamas and Israel have to deal with each other. They have to deal with each other. There's no turning back. There's two. It's kind of like um, you set out to clean the attic and you clear everything out, and now you got everything strewn out all over, all like everywhere down below. You can't stop now. You got to you might as well just go up there and sweep it out now. Yeah. It says Israel in the Middle East. Well, Israel in the Israel is Israel. Israel is Israel. Israel of the time that is Israel as in connection to Israel, which is their home. The whole point of giving them this special treatment was for the land, or for the concept that, oh, Israel like Jerusalem, oh, like the Bible. Oh, yes, that is in the Middle East. There's no getting around that. You can't escape that. You can't run from it. It just is. You're 21. Oh, that's fine. You're 21. You don't believe in God. Holds me. Yeah, yeah. You don't have to believe in God or heaven. Don't believe in heaven. Don't believe God. But don't be thinking I'm sitting over here trying to save your soul. I'm not trying to save the soul, and I'm not chasing you down to give you important messages from spirit. I'm not, nothing like that. I promise you. I'm not. I'm not like that. Yeah, don't perfectly perfect. Don't believe. Let me make sure okay. I tend to speed read. Okay, I'm 21. I've always not believed in God. Okay, the only thing that holds me is if you don't believe, you don't go to heaven. Okay. Um. Well, it's not so much about you believing in God that there is such a place like a heaven. It's not about believing. It's not about believing in, because he doesn't really require you. That's like I said, my gift works even if a even if a person is atheist. Yeah, even if a person is atheist, if a person is, what do you call those people who are a skeptic? It doesn't matter. Like there's people who they don't believe anything unless you prove it to them. So yeah, it doesn't mean what that if you, because you haven't seen them, that you don't go to heaven, because he's not even judging you on that. And I mean, if you're thinking of him as like an entity, he's not judging if you believe in him. That's what gets you in. Believing in him is not what he's looking for. He already exists. He doesn't require a belief. He doesn't require you to believe in him to exist or to do works, even if he has to do it around you, even if he does it anonymously, where you can't visibly see his work, or he's at work. You can't see it, but it's still happening if it's happening for others around you. And let's say you get the, okay, they're in a good mood. Oh, so you don't have to. He doesn't require you to believe that he touched them. They're in a good mood now. Now that's why you're getting good energy or getting good customer service from them. You just, all you have to believe is this person is just a kind person. Is like put others first and goes out of their his or her way. That's all you need. You could just go by on that and you'll be fine. But he still exists. He's operating in the way that they understand him. So what he looks for rather than believe, because look, you can believe in your enemy, you can believe in your worst enemy, right? But what he's really honestly looking for is more like a conversation. He's looking for a type of like a like a connection. communing with one another. Like he begins, if he gets involved with you, this is when you start to kind of speculate, and you're like within your speculation that, am I talking to myself? But it's, I sure am answering myself in ways that I normally, if I were to think about it, I wouldn't word it like that. Like, what am I bouncing off of? Maybe I'm being inspired. And that is a first glance of what we call mysticism, when you start to acknowledge things outside of yourself. So yeah, it doesn't, belief is another, like, in fact, that's a spiritual gift. Faith that you're talking, what you would deem as faith, or including hope, those are spiritual gifts. And according to the book, you don't have to seek after spiritual gifts in order to have a wonderful, happy life. So you could thrive. You could say, if faith is real and faith makes you happy, right? And it's like, yeah, faith it makes you happy. Why? Because so you think by having faith or believing in something like somebody invisible, you're gonna get things like your bills paid, things like that. It's like, yeah, they're not gonna shut off my lights. Okay, then my lights shut off. It's no, seriously. So that's the way that you would kind of put it together in your mind. But then, you would say, yeah, I'm happier than you are. And my lights never turn off. I leave them on and I forget that I even have them on. Like, life is just grand. Or like, why do, like, people make a lot of money, a lot of money, a lot of money, and and they like are atheists to the bone, and they're smart, and they had all of the opportunities in the world. They can go get into any meeting room, they can go to any university of their choice. Like, why is that? Or you go on and on and on that. When in actuality, you don't have to seek after gifts. That is a gift to have faith, to believe like that. The Apocrypha mentions that people don't believe because they don't, or excuse me, people who never seen a prophet before, they've never experienced a prophet, they've not seen God before, and they've not been taught about God, but God still gives them a covenant with them, still makes covenant with them, because he said that they come to know him, not believe in him. They become to know him like I know this person, therefore I love this person. Oh, I love this person. That is what he's looking for, a relationship. So then that puts aside the whole bit of, oh my gosh, you have to believe in things that are like magical or mystical, or believe in psychics or something, when you don't have to. You don't have to believe in psychics. And by the way, this is the same type of situation where people talk about internal dialogue. And of course, people say, well, I don't have an internal dialogue, but it's something that's closely related to an internal dialogue, where just somebody might just take the time just to think, process in their mind, and little extra stuff is being kind of put in between sentences, from now and a when, now and then. And that there's just something that is a little bit more extra today in these words that are churning in my head. So that is like the ideal experience. Like, that is definitely a person who could end up waltzing right in through heaven's gates, and not even have any concept of scriptures, because even the book says that not everybody is going to hear the gospels. Like, it can touch the four corners. That's the whole idea of, I guess, what do you call it, of those people. Oh gosh, I'm not gonna be able to go into my bag right now, but it's the person who can go out and create. If I just try hard enough, I know apostle. There it goes. Okay, so an apostle is a person who goes out into the world and does outreaches, so to speak. That's what Peter and them were doing. They were doing outreach when they were interacting with Paul. That's like an outreach. Like Paul also outreach. So those were apostle Paul, etc. The apostolics. All of that is about outreach, going out into the world. Now these are humans, okay, who are going out there. That was dicey, but so that means that you didn't have those, you weren't taught, but that even if you don't receive of the gospels or information, you're downloaded with something extra that tells you, like interacting with you. You're 21, you sound very respectful and smart and very highly mature. Those are I would say those are spiritual qualities. Now you may not go and find scripture that support that, but you know what? That's and there's a scripture that supports this way of thinking. Well, it says that there are universal or commands that are written or kind of like downloaded already that you already possess, and all you're doing right now is perfecting what's already there, and that is already a good sign. That okay, somebody who's carries around the Bible but has dark thoughts and acts on them, on the weekend, right? And is harming themselves and others, right? Versus somebody who says, well, I don't believe any of that, but that person is like going out there and like sitting with somebody older, lending their time with them, letting that person know how special. Hey, you still have life in you. I bet you have some crazy stories that you can share with me some of your wisdom. I'll listen. I'll lend you my ears, and you make that older person's day. For example, like who's getting the blessing? The one who's acting on dark desires and harming themselves, harming others, and then going to church and still reading the book and still believing and going through all the formalities and really feel it, and it's love, 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 love. Or the person who makes the day of one person who strives to be a better version of themselves every single day. Who's gonna get the blessing? Who's or as you would say, if we could use that. I know you don't believe in God, but who's getting rewarded? Who gets the reward? Atheists say, I do good things because not because of God or because there's a God out there or deity. I do good things because there is a reward on the end. For me, yeah, it can be rewarding to go and help out the pantry. I just do it. It's not that I needed a God to tell me to go do it, but God wouldn't want to tell you to go do something kind anyway. The whole principle of, yeah, I like some parts, the part about kindness and be good to your neighbor. Great. You chose to go out there on your own, which that's what he wants. He wanted you to go out there and on your own say, you know what, I'm gonna go and help those young lady get their car up and going. I might not be a mechanic, but at least I can wait or maybe get them some help or ask them if they need anything. That maybe are you thirsty? I can go grab you a bite, or maybe a sandwich while you wait for your ride. Something useful. Is far greater than somebody who is doing this and this and this and this and this and not even they're not making any improvements on them, like personal work inside themselves, and they know the book backwards and forwards. They could take you for a ride, and you're like, wow, you know so much. You must be like really like loved in your community, but then you find out that you're probably doing more good things in the world just simply by just being yourself. And then you found better ways to really, I guess, show off your higher qualities, your characteristics. So yeah, so it's not as easy to say that you won't get into heaven, so to speak, if you don't believe. It's not about if only if you believe hard enough, because the truth is there are people who are going to believe that they're going to get in and they're not. And in fact, it's very according to the book, It's yeah, it's there's no nice way, other nice. There's not a real sweet way of saying it. That it's not everybody's not going. Everybody's not going to that place. There's like two tries to go. Um, we don't have to go into that conversation, but in other words, you know, like there's some people who just not gonna go. Like that's what people are struggling with that. They're like kind of like take us all or take none of us type of attitude. And that is that it has a lot of discrepancies to that. Just because you all say like holding arms, like take all of us or none of us because we're this or that, that's not gonna roll like that. In so many ways, I didn't even know where to begin to explain that. So, like, if you just have a person, because uh, that deity wants a personal relationship, also wants a personal conversation. It doesn't matter what in the world I think is being said to you. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks or what you need to say to that deity. That's the conversation between you and that deity and you. So it has. So in other words, this is where you finally get to tell the world to say, mind your business. I'll that sounds like an atheistic attitude. I love it. Like I can do good. I can stand on I can create my own moral high ground. I create the grounds in which I express. Whatever the morality is, if I want to give to a person, if I want to not give to a person, that is my decision. I love that attitude. And that is not enough not to get you in the gate. You definitely, some atheists are definitely going to end up stumbling if there is such a thing. And they're probably looking around and like, how did I get here? And what is this? So that is it. That's yeah. You look like you're more on the path towards improvement than people. A lot of people that then you would say, well, I dare not criticize them because they read the book every day. That's not that's not real. It says is founding destroyed the in its founding destroyed the Palestinian population, and at its foundation they did they have actually they have. Okay, so I was trying to have to go into this conversation, but with Moses, when they were on their way to the promised land, when they're at the foot of Mount Sinai, um, they're in the camp, right? And in the middle of the camp, you've got all the commanders, and I always imagine it more like like it's Great Britain, but it's like they're like moving chess pieces, like and like okay, yeah, we got a right flank, we can catch them off, and they won't be expecting us. They're like so they're having a discussion, and Moses is there, and okay, so then there's all the okay, they have been they're warring all the way to destination. So what the thing is, when they've warred, kind of like a change of regime, basically, the people kept walking with them, and that was their beef. That when he uses the word murmur, that's what he's referring to. They murmur, and you're murmuring in your camp on me, which makes, by the way, further along makes God really mad, if he's ever been even any angrier. So they tell Moses, like, what are these people doing? Like, why are they following us? Oh no, oh no. I know they're not thinking about going into the land that's promised to us through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's ours. That's our people, fathers. That's our forefathers gave that land to us, not to them. They're not us. And we're not, no, they're not coming, not following. No, we're not there. We won't go. We won't go. So, which leads to them wandering for 49. That's the real reason. It was because they were, now, of course, I was told that it was because they were shaken up, because they were just, Kenites was just so tall and like, they weren't quite giants, but they were like Philistines. And then there were Canaanites, who were like just, but like more like athletic, like in very bronze like. So yeah, so that's how they depict them, but that's not the story at all. They didn't even need to fight. The words were, he gave them a special command, a list of things to do as they entered into the land. He basically told them, approach with intellect. He didn't say approach with swords out and do this and do that and don't let nothing, all that. No, he said approach with intellect. So they did. And then he said, this is what I want you to do. I want you to, the men who are older would be your seniors, that's 50 and up. The men who are 40 to 30 are to help them in through the gates, and then next the women, the children, the women, and so all the rest were to help the children and women, and then they went in like that. That's how they integrated into the land of Canaan. Okay, and they were side by side. And by the way, everybody is Semitic, so everybody's speaking language of Hebrew. Everybody's speaking Hebrew, even the Canaanite people. Even obviously, even the other nations like Egypt are there, and they would have no problem communicating. They actually intermarried with Israel as their. Of course, when they also receive the blessing um, where we get engrafted from. They were engrafted and then allowed to go in. Okay, so the big beef was we don't want, but before all that, by the way, it wasn't by their choice, like Israel decided to embrace these people. No, Moses was instructed by his God to bless and incorporate them into the tribes. And that's the way it was written. But when they were out there with the whole Sinai bit, they sent Moses up there to ask God, "What do you want us to do with all this?" So I love to always say that God was teaching Moses and Israel about diversity and equality. And so they went there, and he got his answer. He came back mad, and and he threw. That's when the part where he throws well, it was expressed that he throws a tablet, but the ground opened up and did the whole bit of swallowing because they were like already reverting back to their old, to the ways that is typical for any human. But um, in the well, kind of like today, it's like we wanted you to do better, Moses. They're having their little moment, their Moses again, Moses moment again. It's like, come on, you have so much, going for you. Like, why are you doing it this way? So, so there's that, and then progressions of time where they're wandering and still those people. That's some strong. They would not let go. Those surrounding the people who followed, who from other tribes at the time when they, had won and it was just 40 years old. Like, are we ready to go into there or not? But they just like these other nations is held on for dear life. They probably didn't even know what the story was. They probably didn't know that, there's some kind of myth. Maybe was hearing some ramblings, but then yeah. So they it's always have been tension there day one, but they could not, because the whole point of Canaan, by the way, it wasn't just for when he says as many as the sands and the uh, grains of sand and stars, as many people I have. And so, of course, they're thinking, well, that's going to be, that's going to be wonderful evenings and wine. But, he meant there was a bigger scope. He was saying the world, the world. It's like the nations, those are mine, the people as well. And people who are not his, he just calls them human. He says the human. So he refer if you're not, let's say you're an atheist, right? God calls you, according to Old Testament, human. He just calls you a human. But like when you're when you're engrafted, you're his son. You're a family now or daughter. And so Um, so he wanted, oh, and Canaan, okay, think about it. Why did Canaan lose their space or get, why, or, I mean, of course, other than being divine, it's because only reason why Canaan has always been Semitic, in other words, followed Semitic or Hebrew traditions. And only thing God said they're not taking care of the land. That's it. They're not keeping the Sabbath. That's like it's like talking to it, like saying the Jewish people are in trouble again. Why? They're not keeping the Sabbath because they're not taking care of the land. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. They, and I want them to turn about face back to me. That's what he says about Canaan. So it's like making Canaan out to be this human group is inaccurate. That's inaccurate. That's not even the way that they're described. He's like, they just stopped. They just, they stopped taking care of the land. The land's gone bad, and so I need like this is a special land that I want to call my own, and I want you to thrive in it, Israel. So go in here and all, with everybody else. So it's Canaan, the nations, and Israel, and then you have the world, which is his. That's more like a deity plan, not like a little group. So yeah, so like yeah, so today they are not too smitten with they're an extensions of themselves. Like when one said somebody said brothers against brothers and so forth. Yeah, that's the human sort of like what do you call it, path current, the human current that like you follow the human current. And yet there are like times in which right now and over the course of time where people are like, I'm done with you, I'm done with you, and they're like, stay away from me, stay away from you, stay away from me. And but then you know they deep down ancestrally they know that isn't right. That's why they don't want separate. That's why they don't want a two state type of thing. It's not because well what they start building again or they start trouble again. No, now this is minus. We already eliminated. Let's say eliminated Hamas. Now can Israel just? I mean, can Palestinian people just have their separate thing? Deep down, Israel know what that means. Deep down, they know what it means. It means it's kind of like a bit of a divorce. It's kind of like saying, well, then I'm going to divorce you. Then, like, oh, I don't want to be part of your household no more. I want to go and buy my own house, or we could stay more like we could stay family, but I'm going to buy my own house. Don't you call me? I won't call you. It's something to that effects. So yeah, they're saying no, a house is divided is destroyed. They're like, no, we're not going to let you divide our house. So, but at the same time, in today's society, it puts a bad taste in everybody's mind, because from a Western point of view, we don't like. I don't want to live in your house. I don't want to be forced to live in your house. I don't want to be forced to live in your house and tolerate it, and I don't want to be any of those, all of those above, and plus hungry, for nothing, not spiritually and not physically. So like I'd rather like the sweetest gift, which that's why they're not gonna get it, is just let me go and just figure it out for myself and just like leave me to me, into the elements. I'll be better off that because that is a gift that they're not going to like willingly just do that. But the way that it seemingly should play out according to the scriptures, a little bit prophetic here, is that because okay, so like I was describing about the book of Isaiah, it says that Israel would not, like, they would conquer everybody that